Good morning, everyone. I'm Elena Campbell, President of the Rochester Regional Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our Human Resources Peer Solution Group. And I know a couple of you on the call are new, so I wanted to give you a little bit of background about what our HR Peer Solution Group is. We started peer solution groups a little over a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And the idea came out of a member survey that we did. One of the things that we heard loud and clear from our members was that they wanted the opportunity to network and collaborate with their peers, with people that were in similar industries, so that they could help each other out with resources and ideas, identify current trends and topics, bring in speakers that were related to their field, or speakers to share their expertise on different issues that they were all facing together. The HR Peer Solution Group got started. The first meeting, I believe, was in November of 2019. The group decided to meet quarterly, and then we held another meeting at Blossom Ridge at Mosheri, where we brought in a speaker to talk about multi-generational workforces. That was a topic that the group identified as something that they wanted some assistance with and wanted to learn more about. So we found an expert to come in and speak on that topic. And that was shortly before COVID hit. Then we found ourselves in the middle of a pandemic, or in the beginning of a pandemic in March. Now I guess we're more in the middle of it. And the HR group kind of didn't meet for a while because we were all busy navigating the new waters, as it were to say, out there, the new environment that we found ourselves in. But we wanted to get the group back together again. And I was so excited when Scott Garretson reached out to me with Clear2Go, a product that they have developed that can be and is extremely helpful for many, many businesses as we navigate the health and safety of our community and our employees moving forward with this pandemic, and it can help with a lot of other things as well. So that's a little background about the HR group. At the end, I would like to take a little bit of time, the last 10 minutes or so, to talk about the needs of the group and set up a next time to get together via Zoom as well. So before we end, we'll have a little 10-minute discussion on where we want to go with this group, where you want to go, I should say, with this group, and set up our next meeting date. So I also wanted to start out with a couple of announcements. We are recording this. We will make it available. If you have questions, just type in the chat box that you have a question. It's a small group, so you can unmute yourself and I'll call on you, and then you can unmute yourself and ask your question. We want it to be very interactive, and we can do that since it's a small group. And then I wanted to make a couple of announcements about some upcoming things that we have coming up this week. So today at noon, we did resume our member update calls. We were doing them weekly when the pandemic first started back in March, and we were getting updates from all of our elected officials, all the way from our local level, all the way up to our US Senator, keeping us informed about resources and issues as they came down the pike, I guess I would say. And so we've resumed those. They're not every week, they're every other week, or sometimes every third week due to a holiday. But today at noon, we're going to hear from Christy Trevero, who is our DDA director for the city of Rochester, and she's going to give us an update on what's going on downtown. As you know, many things have changed. The way we do events has drastically changed. So she's going to give us an update on what's going on downtown with events, what they are doing, what they can do, the protocols and safety measures, that they're following, of course. And then we've got a couple of updates on some programs that are available for businesses to take advantage of, and then an update on, of course, some of the new rules that have come out from MDHHS, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So that's today at noon. And then I'm really excited on Friday, November 13th, we have got Rob Scott, who is the Region 5 SBA Administrator, coming back. He did a call for us for all of the Oakland County chambers a couple of weeks ago, where he gave an update on the EIDL and PPP loans and what was happening there. And of course, as we all know, everything is pretty much stalled out right now due to the election. But he has graciously agreed to join us on Friday and walk us through the PPP Easy Forgiveness loan form, the 3508, I think is what it's named. But he is personally going to walk us through filling out that form. So we're really excited about that. And then just in case you missed it, last Monday, we held our first ever live stream premiere of our Sunrise Pinnacle Awards. Normally, this event is 500 and some people at the Royal Park Hotel, and we honor a little over 20 individuals, nonprofit organizations, and businesses for what they do to make our community so great. Of course, we had to pivot like everybody else has had to, and switch this up and make it an online event. We partnered with 148 South Street Studio, who's right here in Rochester, and they filmed the event for us and produced it for us, and we premiered it last Monday. And we were really excited to honor 12 individuals, businesses, and nonprofit organizations for some pretty amazing things that they have done here in our community, and ways that they really stepped up during this difficult time. So in case you missed it, this is our website. Under the events tab, there's the Sunrise Pinnacle Awards page, and right there you can just click on that and take a look at who we recognized for that. So I am going to stop sharing my screen, and what we would love is for everybody to introduce themselves who's on the call. So, and I'm just going to start on my left, and if you could tell us who you are, what business you're with, what your role is there, that would be great. And I'm going to start with Erica, because she's top left on
I'm on your left, right? Okay. My name is Erica Sklar. I'm president and owner of Benebiz Plus Employee Benefits. I've been an agent for 27 years, and I decided to go on my own during this pandemic. What a great time, right? My take from all of this is actually, I have a lot of, believe it or not, a lot of groups, employer groups, that ask me a ton of HR questions. And I know I really don't give them a lot of advice, but I kind of need to know what's going on so I can, dabble my toe in it and at least give them some advice on where to go and get the resources. So that's my takeaway from this group.
Thank you, Erica. And Erica is a long time member of the Chamber, one of our ambassadors, and we really appreciate everything that she does for the organization. So next is Lee.
Good morning. I'm Lee Settlemyers-Wick, and I am currently the Assistant Dean of the School of Education and Human Services at Oakland University. And you might be thinking, okay, what does that have to do with HR? Assistant Deans at Oakland University actually serve as finance operations and HR in their role, but I've been in human resources for just over 22 years, starting in automotive and then working over to higher education. I was formerly the head of academic human resources for the university. And I just learned about this group. I'm now part of a group that tells me what's going on with the chamber and a few other things. And I wanted to sign up just so that I could know what's going on in the community and some of the HR challenges they're facing too. Real quickly, I am a member of the Higher Ed HR Group, CUPA, National Public Policy Committee, and so I work with them. And if there's anything that I can do to be a resource within some labor stuff that's going on ahead of things that are getting to be more formal in the process, so to speak, I want to be able to help out that way also.
Awesome, and welcome, Lee. We're excited that you've connected with us. John Young, who's the Vice President of Marketing at OU, is our board chair this year. So,
yes, okay.
So very involved. And of course, Oakland University, you will see at the very, I don't know if it's my left, maybe you're right.
My right.
Is one of our partners at the chamber. So we really appreciate that. Next is Anel.
Good morning. My name is Anel Brazelton, and I'm the firm administrator with Mattina Kenton Gibbons. We are a CPA firm, and we have office in Rochester as well as Lapeer. And my position, I manage both the offices, and that includes all of the HR responsibilities. So I've been continuously looking for groups such as this to kind of help and bounce ideas off and learn some things. There really doesn't seem to be anything local, like a nationwide group with a Michigan chapter that is convenient for me to attend. So I'm hoping to get a lot out of this.
Thank you, Anel. And like Anel said, she's with Mattina Kenton Gibbons, and you'll see their logo right here. Vince Mattina is our treasurer for the Rochester Regional Chamber, and we really appreciate his service to the chamber. And last but not least is Lisa Ecker.
Good morning, everyone. I am Lisa. I work for Mosherry Companies. Mosherry has been in the industry about 55 years now, starting with construction homes, moving into luxury custom builds, multifamily housing, luxury apartments, and most recently senior living with the launch of Blossom Collection last year. And we're getting ready, hopefully, to open our second community tomorrow. So fingers crossed. I have been in HR for, it's crazy to say, almost 20 years. I started off in automotive, found my way into home health and hospice, and most recently senior living. I had the opportunity to be a nursing home administrator as well for 4 years, which I say it makes me a better operator and HR director for senior living. So it's definitely been a wonderful ride in HR, and I'm excited to be part of this group because I just love it. So thank you for everybody being on the call today.
Thank you. And thank you, Lisa, for joining us. Lisa was kind of one of our founding members of the group. She's been an absolute amazing resource for myself as I, in a small nonprofit organization, I wear the HR hat there. So Lisa has been one of my go-to people when I have HR questions, and I appreciate her. And you'll see Mosherry right here as well, one of our partners in the Rochester Regional Chamber of Commerce. So we appreciate that. So with that, it is my great pleasure at this point to introduce our speakers for today. Scott Garretson with Clear to Go. I've known Scott, I was trying to think this morning, Scott, how long I've known you, maybe 6, 7 years?
That sounds about right. It's been about that long,
I think. So just someone who is extremely innovative. I can't tell you, innovative and techie, I guess is what I would say. It's probably the wrong word, but Scott is just an absolute innovator when it comes to software development and app development. And when he sees a need, he jumps in and he creates something. He has another product I'm really interested in that helps you track your KPIs. That's the next one I want to get him on a call to talk about, because we all have different KPIs right now that we're probably tracking, or different priorities that we need to be looking at within our businesses and organizations. And so look for that one coming up. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Clear to Go, Scott. Oh, and I'm assuming Scott will introduce Marco.
Yeah, well, thanks, Elena, and we're excited to be here. I'll let Marco give himself an introduction, his background, his role, and I'll do mine as well. I'll start, but I'm Scott Garretson. I'm the CEO, founder of Clear to Go. Clear to Go, we started specifically, as you'll see as we go through this, of helping address how to come back to work safely, how to deal with illness in the workplace, and a lot of the challenges that face in the workflow. And what we're dealing with is ever-changing compliance and rules, everything from OSHA to Health and Human Services that we deal with. My background, I've been in digital tech for over 25 years. Prior to having my own organization, I was a CIO at a large ad agency. So very diverse background and experience, but we really are passionate and love solving business challenges with technology. And we've been building products, software as a service type products for startups and enterprises in the Detroit area. We're located in Rochester. So we're a local company as well. So Marco, if you'd like, give your quick background and then we can dive right in.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Well, good morning, everybody. And Elena and chamber members, thank you very much for having us today. We're really excited to be able to meet everybody and share and learn a little bit about you and also give a little bit about what we do as well. So I'm in charge of business development for Clear to Go. And as you know, we're kind of a newer company. So I've spent a lot of years in business development, and software is kind of a new thing for me, but nonetheless, we don't, I don't discriminate against any opportunity, and I think Clear to Go is a great one. So we're really happy to be able to give you some information here. So I guess to give you a little background on what Clear to Go and kind of like the why, where, and how. We are a Rochester company, so I'm assuming everybody knows that, but Clear to Go, it's a comprehensive solution to what we all face right now in managing illness in the workplace, particularly COVID-19, which has challenged all of us. And to make a parallel, just as 9/11 has changed the way we travel regarding security, COVID-19 is really changing the way we operate in the workspace and also our daily lives. So being challenged, Scott and his team of developers had the opportunity to develop a solution back in March and piloted it for a few months and eventually launching in June. And since June, we've done over 700,000 screenings across the country. So we're very proud of that. And that number is increasing exponentially by the day as we have more people that support what we do. So we're supported by education, which we feel is very important, because if education, primarily Oakland County Schools, is able to trust us with our most valuable resource, our youth, then we feel it's a good fit for almost every business in America. And to give you a little background, we're supported by medical, manufacturing, legal, financial institutions, athletic facilities, and many more. So at this point, you're probably dying to see how this thing works. So I'll give it back to Scott, and hopefully you'll have some questions and also some ideas for us at the end of this. So thank you again, everyone, for having us, and we're very excited to be here.
Thanks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk this through a couple of slides just to give you a good overview of who we are and kind of what we're doing. And I'll take you right into a live demo so you can see it in action. And what a goal is just to help with some of the process we've discovered, as Marco said, with a large client base across the US, what we've learned with a lot of people trying to return to work or open up their schools, and some of the processes and challenges that they face. Our main goal is, we started off, is trying to provide a tool to manage communicable diseases in the workplace, such as COVID, flu, anything that could cause harm to our students, to our employees, our workforce. And the bottom line is trying to keep everybody safe, stay compliant as we go through these challenging times currently and in the future. With COVID-19 has kind of forced us to ask a lot of questions, some new questions, and some that we've dealt with in the past is, how do I prevent sick or contagious people from coming into work? We're all aware of absenteeism and presenteeism. People coming into work sick was a common practice that is always happened over the years. And those are things that we have to start to rethink as organizations, is how do we manage that to prevent causing harm to other people? Also, who is in my building and when? That's an important factor as well, whether it's a visitor, employees. It starts that process of contact tracing, or an emergency situation, just having that accountability to know that I could go back to see who is on site or who is on site. Also, when someone, for whatever reason fails that compliance of they're sick or contagious and can't come in, how do I manage that process at scale of returning to work and when it's safe, and work with that individual? And something that also comes from that is, can I cover the workload for absence? And this is something, as we progressed, we were going to ask more and more. So as people are out and they trend to be out and they're not able to work, do I have access to the information so I can make some operational decisions? And we kind of liken it to how 9/11 changed the transportation security and the practices that were put in place. COVID is doing that similar type thing for organization when it comes to managing illness, particularly things that are contagious. So what I'm going to do is, I just wanted to kind of give you the general concept of the questions that we're trying to answer. Our solution covers 4 primary areas: that workplace compliance, from daily screening and on, making sure people are educated and aware when you go through a daily screening is, what are the reasons I shouldn't come into a building? Whether you're a visitor, a contractor, a student, an employee, those reasons change. It could be from travel related, it could be symptomatic. It's important that with these daily screening processes that you can adapt very rapidly so people understand that. Or if they're not coming in, understand why, not to diagnose them, but just to understand as if I have to take additional action if it's COVID or something that is contagious. On-site presence monitoring, which we'll get into, is that tracking on site. A case management, a tool for HR to be able to track those cases where someone has failed a screening or has raised their hand and saying that they're not coming in. And then the workforce availability. So with that, I am going to share my screen for the quick demo here. So when it comes to Clear to Go, we have 2 interfaces. The first is what most people would go through, is that daily screening process right now. And we do that in one of 3 ways. That could be done with a text message they get in the morning, push notification. We have an iOS and Android app to make it very easy there, as well as email. So depending on how an organization or how a user wants to go through that process, this is an interface that's available that the end users primarily use. The second interface is more for back-end users, so administrators, people that would configure the self-service tool that we've created, as well as case managers, that HR-specific role of what we manage. So what I wanted to show is a few areas real quick around how we're structured. So we try to make this very simple, very efficient, and very self-service so that it could be used, implemented rapidly, and adapted as conditions and things change. We have 4 default roles. Administrator has access to everything. Case manager, that HR specific or similar role. Some schools that we work with, it could be a principal. They break it by location just to make it easier to manage at volume. A manager, someone that has limited access but wants to help with participation to make sure compliance is being met for people in the workforce, as well as a basic user that goes through a screening process. Additionally, we can have custom roles. So if you have a unique workflow or you have different locations or roles within a locations, you can create various roles there. One example is that is schools would use this over the summer for summer athletics. They had a role for a coach to follow the MHSAA guidelines to be able to go through the processes there. I apologize. I hit the wrong button there and I stopped sharing my screen right in the middle of that. I did it again. Let me move my toolbar so I don't do that one more time. The next setting in there is screening questions. So when it comes there is the Public Health Authority, CDC, Michigan, Oakland County, all have great questions and guidance of what you should screen and ask people as you go through. So what we did is we built a self-service question builder so you can change and adapt that. And some unique things that we did is we made it unique by location and type of user. So you could have a different set of questions for students, for employees or staff members, for visitors or contractors, and it also supports multiple languages. So this way, if you have different levels of compliance or types of questions you want to ask, you can be able to do that. And the way that that works is we have different types of questions. So single choice, a multiple choice, a numeric input, text, or agreement. If you want someone to agree to some kind of terms or anything like that before they go farther with that question, as well as a video. So if there's a training video, a PPE video, or similar you want them to watch before you clear them to come into the building, that is another choice as well. The way that it's structured, you have a question, you have context, so that people interpret what you're asking, so you get clear answers and choice, all the way down to what your answers are, and then a simple tree to help, how do you guide them through? So if they say yes to one, so you can get branches of questions and take them down a path. If they are symptomatic, you may want additional details, all the way down to end states. So when someone does fail a screening, what message you want to present? Please stay at home, isolate yourself, someone will be in contact to discuss next steps, all the way to on-site screening. If someone doesn't have access to certain things, say a thermometer, you may ask if they have a temperature. You can provide those services and say, here's where you go for on-site screening to be able to assist in that. Additionally, as I mentioned, that there's multiple languages if required for support there. We also allow unlimited screening schedules. So what screening schedules will allow is if you want to notify all employees at a particular time and a particular day, they'll get that text message, push notification, or an email to go through. You can get more granular if you have different shifts or different locations. So you could say by a particular location, I could change that. So screening schedules just helps with all of the reminders to go through the process, preferably before someone goes into the building. That way they're compliant, you know they should come in, and then when they come in. A few other areas, and then I'll go through kind of a workflow for you real quick, is first off is locations. You can have as many locations as you want. And this is how you can set up permissions and put roles associated to locations as well. And we have some unique features that I'll go over here in a minute around locations that help with some of the other functions. The types of users that we support. So we have contractors. Some of our clients wanted to track contractors separately, not only for screening questions, but maybe they're on site for a particular duration time. So maybe it's a week, 2 months that they're going to go through this process that are there. They're not like a permanent employee. When it comes to adding employees, we can do it one of 3 ways. We can simply add an individual. We have the ability to do a mass import, or for larger environments, we offer a single sign-on type solution. So integrated with things like an Active Directory, Google, a G Suite login, Okta, a lot of the popular single sign-on solutions to make it very easy to manage in large enterprises. Students. So for students, we've done some very unique things as well, especially for K through 12, as Marco mentioned. We're doing a lot there to try to help them. We did a household level screening so that a parent can choose on behalf of their younger children or get permission for their older children to screen. And this helps distribute that workload and make sure that there's compliance around there. Same thing, we can bulk upload. So a lot of schools that we work with locally are managed it there. So what I'm going to do now is just going to give you a quick walkthrough of a couple of examples of how the screening process works. So that, as I mentioned, you can see there's a question, a response, and context. So in this one, in the first 14 days, have you been told by a local government or public health authority to isolate for any COVID-related reason? I'm going to say no. During the last 3 days, have you had any of the following symptoms? Again, you can call out and give additional context just to make sure people are interpreting correctly. Again, I'll say no. Daily temperature checks are required when you took your temperature was at 100.4 or higher. I will say no. We added a confirmation step to help to reduce the false screenings in cases that would be created. Once submitted, what happens is we create a QR code. This QR code is valid for 18 hours and it can be configured by 12 or 8. From this point, that covers kind of that screening process. And what our clients do now is they move on to presence. How do I track who's on site and make sure they're eligible to come into their building based on that screening compliance? We do that in one of 4 ways. For large organizations, we integrate with key card systems, access control. For a lot of our clients, what they're starting to do is we enable geofencing. So if you're not familiar with geofencing, you can put a radius around a location of a building. And if you're using our mobile apps, when you enter that vicinity, it'll automatically check you in. And when you leave, it'll automatically check you out. So then we log that someone was on site, and if they didn't happen to screen, it'll alert an administrator that said that an individual is on site and they did not screen. Additionally, tied into that, we allow capacity tracking so that you can say if your office normally holds 100 people, but you want to limit it to 50, is they check in, you can get that count and send alerts and thresholds to an administrator. So that's the second way that is more of a self-service way if you don't have a gatekeeper on site to check people in. Another way that we do it is we have a built-in scanner. In this scanner, what this allows is we have some higher education clients and some people with multiple buildings. They'll start the scanner and they'll leave it running on an iPad or an Android tablet. And then what happens is that somebody, when they walk in, they have their badge in the morning and they go into the building and it's self-service. They would just hold it up and it would automatically check them in. So this is another way that we can confirm that someone has gone through that compliance process as well as been checked in on location. And the fourth way that we have is around if someone wants a secondary temperature check or screening on site, as well as if there's on-site gatekeeper. And what we do here is we allow what we call a roll call feature. So you can see that people screened before they come down site. You could do a secondary temperature check, mark them on-site fail if they have a temperature, or simply mark them present. Additionally, if someone doesn't have access to technology, you can screen on their behalf as they come in and then be able to answer those questions. So this will give you that ability to check people in, do the secondary temperature checks, and make sure that everybody's following the process as they enter the building. The next thing I'll do is I'll just go through a failed scenario so I can show you the HR side of this when it comes to case management and some of the tools we built there. So in this case, I'm going to say, yes, I've been told to isolate. And you can see a branch of questions here. Have I completed the isolation period? I'm going to say no. What was the specific reason I was told to isolate? I'm going to say that was confirmed or presumed case. Again, when I submit, I get that custom message that was in the question builder. Please don't enter the building today. Stay home, isolate. Someone will be in contact with you. What happens on the back end is that we have a case that is automatically created. So whoever is at HR or similar role will be automatically notified that a new case has been created. And we built this as a tracking tool so that you can do things like the first thing is you look at the screening questions to see where they fell, to know, is this something that we have to take COVID protocol, or is it something I need more information, be able to make decisions on how we proceed. And if I determine there's enough information here, I can make it active. At this point, I could set up a follow-up reminder. So if someone's going to be in quarantine for 10 days, 14 days, I can track those dates. As you start to get into larger environments and more cases, it helps you prioritize which ones to follow up with. As you talk to an individual, you can add notes so you have a complete audit log. Documents, any documents you want to attach to the file. If someone says they're recovered, they've tested negative, you could ask for a doctor's note or whatever your process for compliance is, attach it to the file, and you can change your status to closed so it can start going through that scanning process again. Additionally, we have contacts. So if someone did get positive, you could use our presence management tool. You could look at people that were potentially in the building with them at the same time or the area, and you could add contacts. So this is a way to start then tracking people that are related to this case. And if you find that there's enough information, you could actually create a case from this. From a school level, we have with that household level screening, if anyone fails in the house, we automatically add those contacts for everybody so that it becomes an easier process. So this gives the HR a tool to be able to manage that process of when to bring people back safely. A couple other things additionally, visitor management. Since we talk about compliance in all areas, we thought it was important to build a tool to track visitors as well. And you can track visitors in one of two ways. You can pre-authorize them to come on site. So you can capture their contact information, when they're coming in, who they're there to see. They would get a text message, answer your questions, and show up in the visitor log to be able to check them in and check them out. What a lot of our clients do as well is we give you the ability to print a sign based on a location. Say we screen for COVID. It is a very self-service, easy process where someone would hold their phone up, their camera. It would take them to a link to be able to answer those questions and then be able to check them in. And then you have a complete visitor log available to you. A couple things when it comes to data that's available. all activity log. So this is available to search, to be able to export as well. So you have a complete history of who was on site, where they passed, when they entered the building, and how did they enter the building? Was it a manual check-in? Did they use a kiosk scanner? Did they go through the key card? Any of those options, geofencing is tracked and the data is available to you. Additionally, all the screening data for compliance purposes to be able to store and keep, I believe the time frame right now is at least a year. You'd be able to search through and all types of users and all the data and be able to export this if you had to provide it to a third party. A couple dashboards view as well. That you have an executive dashboard so you can see your cases and ongoing, your participation rate of how many people are going through this screening process, and broken out by location. Additionally, when I mentioned that manager role, if you wanted to distribute some of that workload, they'd be able to have a view to make sure the people that they're responsible for are going through this process, but they don't have access to sensitive information. So they can see who has gone through the process, who's in the building, and if someone's in that they see that hasn't, they can send them a reminder to screen right here. So this helps capture all of that information around there. So that's a good overview. I just want to walk through those areas. As Marco said, we have clients today across the US in every vertical, from healthcare to education, manufacturing, hospitality, financial. We've done now as of today, over 750,000 screenings. A lot of volume and a lot of learning has gone into this, and we've taken that feedback from our clients and incorporated into the product. So that's an overview there of the product. So I will turn it over to the team here. If they have any questions or they want to go through anything specific, I'd be happy to answer those.
Erica.
You know I have questions. So my number one question is this HIPAA compliant?
So this process, when it comes to compliance around the data screening and COVID, falls under the ADA EOC guidelines. Our data is hosted in a HIPAA compliant facility, so all the data is encrypted at rest. As far as an employer is concerned, it's ADA compliant. You're allowed to ask the questions around, the flu, influenza, anything that's like COVID related. You're allowed to do that without being HIPAA compliant as an employer.
Okay, I get that, but who has access then to the info? Can you lock out access to certain people? Because I guess that's the biggest concern.
Sure, especially in the case management, right? So from an HR perspective, you need a separate medical file than a personnel file. And that case management has that type of data in there. And that's early on when I was going through the demo, talked about roles. So you're in complete control as an organization to be able to say who has that role to access the case level data, which is typically only HR. And you can set up those role and permission. It's secured and authenticated, and it's control of the organizations to make those decisions who has access to it.
Okay, then with the changing restrictions with the federal government and then we think, and the state government, does the software update for that?
What we've done, and we try to make it very self-service and flexible. That's why we built a question builder and a lot of options, because every state, sometimes every local, even a county, has different guidelines or recommendations or orders or emergency rules. So we built it very flexible so organizations can go on themselves. For example, just I think last week, there was another question that was recommended for schools to ask. So all the schools could go in, change it themselves, and instantly those are the questions that are being asked to screen the people coming in the building. So over time, we've made this as flexible, simple, and self-service as possible to accommodate those changes that happen.
How small of a business do you work with?
We have clients that are 5 users all the way up to 5,000 users and everywhere in between. So it's meant for large organizations when it comes to integrations, security, and compliance. But for small businesses, we have clients that we've never talked to that signed up for our service, configured it themselves, and launched and started screening their employees and started following guidelines.
So with this information, then what's the next step? You have all this information. It can print out reports. What can you tell people to go get tested? What happens next after you import all this information?
Sure. So, screening is a good way to remind people of reasons they maybe should quarantine or stay home. When they fail those questions and HR then starts to manage that process, that's where we built that tool for HR to be able to log and track that data and go. So the first thing that happens is HR is alerted. When someone goes through that process, an HR person or whoever's that role is designated would get an alert that says an individual has failed a screening. You would then go in and look at our case management tool and start tracking data and setting reminders. So for example, if they had to be quarantined for 10 days, you could set that follow for 10 days and add notes. So when that time expires, you have prioritized cases in your view in our tool. So an HR professional then could say, okay, I'm going to reach out to this individual, get an update and see if it's okay for them to come back into work or back on site. And I could close that case so that they can then start going through the screening process again. So that's that workflow management tool. We have clients that have, thousands of employees that are managing 50, 100, 150 cases at a given time. That doesn't mean they're all COVID, but there could be other reasons they're in quarantine based on guidelines and restrictions. So we try to make that process very easy to manage and keep up with volume, especially when we have flu seasons and COVID ramping up. Getting around HR, the tools to be able to manage that process is something that we've tried to make very simple.
I guess my follow-up question is, so you have this information, can any government entity or anything ask for this information? And do you have reports that go to them? I mean, what
Sure.
happens after all of this?
So as you're matching all this, I think the time frame is a year. You're supposed to retain this data as part of compliance. And any of the data that is exportable out of our system. So if you're coordinating with a public health authority or any kind of government body that is requesting the information that you're required to give to, you can export that data and share it with them. So you have all the data electronically. It's all available and secured. And if you need to, you can share it with them.
Okay. One final question, believe it or not. Is the software able to put in disclaimers, like, because employees are very reluctant, I found out, to divulge any type of information. Is there a legal disclaimer in there or any type of disclaimer for the employee?
Actually, there is, and that's why we went beyond just screening questions. It could be visitors around compliance and disclosures or agreement of terms, anything like that. Those are a type of question you can ask. We have a type of question that's called agreement. So you can put some kind of disclaimer that says, here's our policy. You have to be truthful. It's important. We're trying to work together to keep everybody safe in our environment. They have to agree to that before they can go farther to be able to get that badge to enter a workplace. So those are all choices organizations there have, and that's why we made that question builder very flexible to be able to go through that process.
Okay, that's it. That's all I got.
Those are good questions.
Lee.
Yes. Scott, it looks like you it might help if I had the mic. It looks like you built the system to really try to counteract those false sets of cases that would come in. But as we all know, humans working on a system, right? So because I have had this case with checking in with an employee where, this stuff becomes rote and started messing up the system. Is there a way after the submission piece where on the case management side, either through roll call or the case management specific, that you can override? I'm one of these people who loves clean data on my dashboard. And so is there something where, they just totally screwed it up and you can go do an override for what really happened?
Absolutely. And those are good questions because you obviously have gone through this and seen a lot of these use cases come up. We have two things, right? So the first thing is I can change the status of a case to close invalid so that I know this wasn't an actual case. And early on, we gave organizations choices in what they could do. We also have the ability to be able to give the option to rescreening. So there could be a failed case, but you can allow somebody to rescreen and then go through that process again. So that's a choice of an organization's. Early on, some organizations were doing that because they were getting a lot of false cases. So they would do this, especially in summer athletics. when they had older students going through this process. So between the ability to change it to an invalid case and those organizational settings, and also that confirmation of your answers. So instead of just hitting no, no, and then submit, and then realize maybe they answered the question wrong, we wanted to make sure that we gave people a verification to say, you're going to fail the screening. Is this true? Are your answers correct? Submit. So we've given a couple areas, and you're right, that we've tried to prevent these false cases being created, because as HR is, I'm sure you're aware, gets overloaded, especially at a university with a lot of students going through this process.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. I have just a couple of an observation and questions, I guess. I think this is something that can obviously help protect your business, to show that you're doing your due diligence, to protect your employees and the community, your customers. You've got an awesome tracking system that can show that you are following all of the guidelines and the protocols. One of the things last week, at the end of last week, the Michigan Chamber, I know, put something out that recommended that all of our businesses go back and review their PRP plan, their preparedness and response plan, in light of some new things that have come out from OSHA, MyOSHA, and Michigan, Department of Health and Human Services. So that's something we're actually going to be putting out some information today to our members, recommending that they go back and review that PRP plan. I know we've all heard, they are starting to fine businesses, for non-compliance. Yeah. So it's more important than ever that that our businesses are able to show and prove that they are doing their due diligence. My question was, in the event then that's a next step, in the event that someone fails, right? Mm-hmm. They have a temperature, they can't come in. Can that trigger, or can you set it up to trigger then things that need to happen in your workplace? For example, cleaning, if you're in a situation where you share tools or share desk space or whatever, where you get you're alerted, and a whole process would follow on what you need to do internally as well to protect everyone else who's there.
It's a good question. And now you're looking at our roadmap, right? So you can predict the future of what we're doing here. So we're starting to put things in place where you can have default checklists, right? And we look at it as there's, a possible, probable, and confirmed cases. So when someone fails a screening, it doesn't mean it's COVID, but it does mean as an organization, we have to start finding more information to decide, do we have to isolate more people? Then what protocol? When do we interact that protocol? And when we do, what is our default checklist? So one of our upcoming releases of enhancements to our case management tool is going to have default checklists that you can create to say, here's our protocol for this type of thing. And then it gives everybody that reminder to go through. So those are things we're absolutely working for. As you can see, and hopefully you can see when I go through this demo, is with all the usage we've had and all this ever-changing situation, we've tried to help our clients adapt and add very flexible features in there. And that's a request that's starting to come up. So that's something we're taking very seriously to put into our product.
Awesome. Thank you. I could see where that would be something that would be extremely helpful for employers and businesses. Okay, now what? What do I have to do here to make sure I'm protecting everyone?